I'm excited to have Corina leading this conversation today and sharing with all of us the teachings of
Oh,
NLP.
great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Sarah. I'm glad that your relationship is getting better. It definitely is. It goes to show there is a lot of power in some of these techniques. And honestly, guys, if I give anything to you today, it's really awareness of how it all works. So if you have that awareness, you can start thinking down the line on about how this is impacting some of your intimate relationships, your work relationships, and your relationships with your clients. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Okay, awesome. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up? Okay, cool. All right, guys. So has anyone here ever played the game of poker? You know, 10 guys around the table chunking around chips, talking about their businesses and their careers and their relationships and their families and sharing the would'ves and could'ves and should'ves of life, but didn't. My first job as an adult in my adult life was as a poker dealer. And as a poker dealer, I had a great deal of customer service responsibilities. I would seat my guest, and actually I'm going to change this. You'll see this is me recently in a poker game, but you know, I would seat my guests, collect their bets, I'd give them their chips before they started the game, and I would basically remind them of house rules, right? Part of the role was to monitor the table for signs and gestures of cheating. I was basically the poker police. I was oftentimes the good luck charm, and honestly, more of the time, someone's worst nightmare because they're losing all their chips. And although I loved being in the box as a poker dealer, I felt like something was missing in my life. I felt that there was like this calling that something more was possible. You see, guys, in the game of poker, with the players that win, they attribute their winnings to skill. And those loose cannons that lose all the time, they blame it on bad luck. So I'm here to say that success is not an accident. If you want to win, you have to improve your skills. If you're on this call, it's likely because you're eager to, for answers, and you're interested in more growth in your life. And to learn more advanced techniques to grow your business and improve your life, then just like the game of poker, you really need to, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Wait, I realized that I have not even told you guys about myself before I'm jumping in here. So for those of you who don't know me really quickly, I'm part of your community, and that my company is Brand Besties. We hire event staff nationwide. We've been in business for about 11 years, and much of our success has come from basically niching down. I mean, literally, guys, up until recently, I have been very proud of the fact that staffing is the only value that we offer our customers. We don't do event planning. We are not strategists for the most part. We simply hire event staff for live events. I've been very comfortable with my agency for a lot of years, 11, up until COVID-19, right? Because we really don't have any other services or value to offer our customers. But our systems and processes have been so dialed in over the last few years that a few years ago, I was able to take off a lot of time and pursue my passion for speaking and coaching and mentoring. And all of my study that I'm going to share with you today comes from the background of neuroscience. So this is just some of our live event experiences. I've done the brand ambassador gig with Drive Clean Texas and many more. So neuro-linguistic programming, guys, basically NLP is a model of communication. Sarah said it yourself, it's how we communicate to ourselves and to the others around us, and how that communication actually creates and affects our behavior. So in a minute, I'm going to share part of the NLP communication model with you so that you understand why in moments of peacefulness, our mind like suddenly becomes hijacked by waves of negative emotions. So I'm a certified trainer and master coach of NLP by the American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So all of us know the big elephant in the room right now is COVID-19 and shelter in place. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty taking place in the world. You know, who here is experiencing massive anxiety when decisions about your business right now? I know I did early on. You know, with everything going on in the world, you might be feeling a lot of guilt, possibly panic attacks for many reasons. You know, some of you are having to lay off your employees. Maybe you lost your job and you were the sole breadwinner for your family, you know, further causing emotional unavailability between your kids and your spouse. The cycle is likely finding its way into all areas of your life right now. And really, maybe you don't have kids or a family or employees, but you're just having a really difficult time staying positive and motivated because of the extreme uncertainty of the circumstances that are taking place all around us. So let's see here. If you're anything like me, you want to stay proactive, you want to feel good about the decisions that you're making and the direction that you're taking. And because at the end of the day, guys, we are going to get through this. And when we do, you're going to be on the side of this. Does everyone see the perception is projection slide?
Yes.
Yes? Sarah?
Yes.
Thumbs up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, just making sure, because I have two screens open, so I want to make sure that you guys see. My camera is here, but my screen is here. Okay. With that said, many of you are here because you want to understand how to choose a more helpful, effective response when our buttons are being pushed or when something negative is triggering you, yes? Many of you are trying to understand how a person like yourself, a high achiever, a coordinator, a planner, an event professional who is used to overcoming obstacles easily and quickly could just get stumped, you know, maybe even paralyzed by this fear and really not feeling good about the decisions that you're making in your business. So let me go ahead and introduce the NLP communication model. Much of what we are feeling in life is based on this idea of suggested experiences and how those suggested experiences are affecting our behavior. So for example, I'm working with a client right now who has this problem. Every single time her phone rings and she sees that it's her boss on the caller ID, she like freaks out immediately. She's literally thinking that every phone call from her boss right now is going to be the call where they lay her off. And this is a major problem for her right now. She cannot stay focused, and then she feels even more pressure that this will start showing up in her work that eventually will cause her to lose her job in the long run. So started for her when shelter in place went into effect. Why? Because as opposed to being pre-shelter in place and it being a very normal day in the life and her boss happens to call her, she's literally plagued with this fear right now because of all of the other emotions that she's experiencing due to COVID-19. You know, in a minute, we're going to discover why that is. You know, why she focused on the fear and on all of the negative emotions, as opposed to being focused on what she can be doing to stay proactive and focused on the job ahead. You know, if you're an employee, you should be focused on figuring out how you can add value to the sales and marketing of your company. You know, your company is likely in a really hard place right now, and they need everyone to come together and play a part that maybe you haven't played a part in before in that organization. So back to the communication model, once we have the awareness that we see the world, here it is, not as it is, guys, objectively, but as we are, subjectively, then we realize that we have this responsibility to choose how we respond to things. And you've likely heard this before in some way or another, this idea that we have the ability to choose our responses and that how we react to circumstances is basically our choice. Right? And it's true, yes, consciously we have a choice. The problem is that choosing how we react consciously doesn't always work in the moment. So we have both a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. And when someone presses your buttons or triggers you and it's unconscious, it's your unconscious habits and programming that basically take over and give you the results that you're getting. And forgive me, I've realized in the past year that not everyone knows that they have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, but we do. And you've likely heard, you've heard it in the ideas that we only use a specific percentage of our brain, whether that be 5, 10, or 7%, depending on where you're reading this information. The point is that it's not a lot, guys. And here's the reality. It's not that we only use 5 to 10% of our brain. We use 5 to 10% of our brain on a conscious level, which means that the rest of who we are is actually what? It's unconscious. 90% of who you are is unconscious programming that we picked up along the way. That's why setting goals on a conscious level rarely works. You know, everyone talks about New Year's resolutions, but at some point in your life, you might just stop making them because they don't work out. The problem with that is that we're trying to change on the conscious level. You know, we're trying to work with our conscious mind, but to really create long-term change, we need to work with the unconscious mind. So I bring this up because the basis of NLP and the communication model is working with the connection between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. So we're going to start here with perception is projection. Perception is the active process of interpreting the events around you. I'm going to show you a diagram here in a minute that's going to kind of pull it together. The idea that our reality is actually subjective and that we understand the world as we are, not as it is. So what this is saying is that we project out onto the world. So perception is another way of saying it, and I realized this last night when I was having a really hard conversation with my boyfriend, but perception is experiencing the world through the lens of your values, your beliefs, your memories, and your decisions. So we're gonna break this down here in the next slide. Ideally, I wanted the slide to like flow in, but I am not a PowerPoint person right now, so I'm trying to figure out how it all works. So let's start on the right-hand side of the slide. But basically what this diagram is showing us is that our experiences moment to moment in our waking reality is that we have external events taking place around us all the time. So if you notice here, the events on the right-hand side, we have winning the lottery, the first kiss, and COVID-19. You know, we are constantly, guys, observing, we're constantly interpreting and responding to those events on a moment-to-moment basis. So again, they're outside of us. Let's say, for example, an event like, you know, winning the lottery, the first kiss, or COVID-19. I have examples here of, you know, getting a divorce or Trump becoming president, right? These things are happening externally. We have no control over them. They are happening outside of us. We perceive those events through our five senses. Now, growing up, we learned all about the five senses, right? Our five senses are visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. This is how we're experiencing events outside of us. Olfactory is the smell, to remind you, and also gustatory is the taste. We typically don't use those too much when we discuss our emotions because we primarily focus on what we call our primary representational system. The majority of you likely use visual, kinesthetic, or auditory to experience your world. The people that use olfactory and gustatory, they're likely the chefs of our world, the perfume makers, the candle makers, those people who really experience the world through olfactory and gustatory, they have those type of jobs. But when you think about our visuals and our kinesthetics, you know, our feelers, these three primary representational systems is how we mostly experience the world. So to be clear, we experience the world through VAK, you know, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, but we're not experiencing all of our reality. So stay with me here, because usually in a training, we spend up to 3 hours on this subject alone, but I'm gonna do my best to give you enough information for radical awareness right now. So at any given moment, you'll see here on the right-hand side of the slide, at any given moment, guys, we have available to us 2 million bits of information per second. A moment is faster than a second, but we're gonna stick to a second here, okay? 2 million bits of information per second. Are you hearing me? At any given moment, any day, we have 2 million bits per second of information available to us, and we don't get it all. That's right. I'm going to say it again. We don't get it all, guys. We only get 126 bits of information per second. So again, we go from 2 million bits to 126 bits. Is that a lot of, is that a big loss of information? Yes or no? Yeah, it's a ton. How we get from 2 million bits of information to 126 bits, you might ask, it's through the process of deletion, distortion, and generalization. And you'll see that at the top of the head, delete, distort, and generalize. what NLP has found is that people are in flow, right? Like oftentimes you might say, man, I'm in the zone right now. I feel good, and you're just going and going, and the is going well. You're usually at your highest. Athletes say that too. I was just in the zone, and that's how I had like the most amazing game. At your highest awareness around you, you have available to you 126 bits of that 2 million bits of information. In other words, it's almost like there's 2 million bits of toothpicks flying by you at every single moment, and your unconscious mind reaches out and it grabs 126 toothpicks, and it treats those 126 toothpicks as your reality. So here's the fun part, how we get to the 126 bits from the 2 million. Let's start with deletion. Deletion is when you don't see something, you don't hear something, and you don't sense something that is there. Now, guys, we have all deleted things. In fact, we're doing it all the time, and we're likely doing it right now. So the things that are not important to us or don't align with our values level, we're deleting those things. So right now you're likely looking at me talking to you, and you're not hearing the cars zoom by outside of you, or you're not hearing your neighbor's kids stomping upstairs above you, or you're not hearing all the things that are going around or sensing something, because your 126 bits that you've chosen to be your reality right now are right here. This is a process of deletion. So in your personal life, are you the type of person who's ever like looked for your keys and just cannot find them no matter where you thought you put them? And you're like yelling at your spouse saying, hey honey, where are the keys? I left them on the table. Why are they not here? And your honey says, they're there. I just saw them. Like literally they're right there. I'm looking at them. And you're telling them, no, they're not. I'm looking here. And your honey stomps over and he picks up the keys and he holds them over your face, and he's like super pissed off, and he's asking you, what are these? They were there. Your eyes saw them, but your unconscious mind didn't for some reason. Does that make sense? This happens often with our sunglasses and our cars and our watches and a whole bunch of other items that we somehow delete. It happens in text messages all the time, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. Because you might have been saying to yourself, the keys are never where I put them. That might be something in your mind that you're like, oh, the keys are never here. Like, why aren't they ever here? Why can't they just put the keys where they belong? Something in your head was deleting that from your experience. Are you guys all getting a sense of deletion here? Okay, good. So next, let's move on to distortion. Distortion is when you see things, but you're not seeing it objectively based on your own mental and emotional state. Now, this is important right now because of what's happening with COVID-19. We're all feeling a very unique, different emotional state that we might not be used to. And later on, I'll add a video of just a more detailed video of how our internal state influences our behaviors. But to give you a quick example, and I'll give you a basic example and then one in your professional environment, but has any of you guys seen the movie The Notebook? And you had all the feelings from that positive experience of this romantic, rom-com, or is it a rom-com or a romantic drama? It's a positive movie, right? Happy, good feeling, emotional movie. You may have seen that. Has anyone seen the movie The Shining? Right? It's a different movie, very different emotional feelings. Do you guys agree with that? Now, if you watch a movie and you heard a noise outside of your couch, what you think about that noise is going to depend on how you're feeling inside. Do you guys get that? So The Shining is going to produce a very different emotion than if you're watching a lovey-dovey rom-com, right? It's the difference between, oh, honey's home, versus Danny's here. Different experience in your head because we're distorting it based on how we're feeling inside. In a professional environment, you could be at an event and it's not really going well. Maybe all the things are going wrong. Your vendor showed up late. Your caterer didn't have the wine that you ordered. Your coordinator is not back with the bobby pins. All hell is breaking loose, basically. And at the same time, you get a call from your husband and he simply wants to check in with you and ask you what time you'll be home for dinner, for which you bounce back sharply and say, cook your own dinner, or you snap back somehow, and maybe your husband just was wondering, like, when you were going to be home. You know, for all you know, he had a 4-course meal ready for you with candlelight dinner, and you distorted the whole situation because of how you felt on the inside in that moment from your external environment. A positive form of distortion is, you know, I have a kid, and sometimes when he says, "Mommy, look, a penguin in the cloud," you know, that's a healthy form of distortion. You know, if you take a lump of clay and you make a picture in your mind and you distort the clay to look like what it looks like in your mind, now you have art. So that's distortion. Let's move on to generalization, right? Generalization is taking something from one experience and generalizing it to the other. So this isn't good for generalizing people, right? You can't work with an event planner who you had a terrible experience with and say, I'm never gonna work with another event planner because they're all terrible. You don't say that, because then likely if you're a caterer and you work with event planners, you wouldn't have work if you're not working with event planners. That's having a bias, guys, and it's not true, and yet people do this all the time. Instead, you can take a learning. How many of you have driven in a car different from the first car that you've ever learned how to drive? You know, likely it's going to be all of you. Does your learning from that first car translate to other cars that you can drive, yes or no? Likely, yeah, because they work the same in general. You know, even if they're a different model or whatever the case is, they still have the same general setup, and that is a useful form of generalization. People always ask, like, how did we evolve so quickly? Well, likely because we're generalizing large chunks of information into different experiences. So our brain is sifting, guys, through 2 million bits of information every single second, and it's generalizing things, it's distorting things, it's deleting things, and it's pulling out the 126 bits that are most relevant to us. These 3 processes, guys, they help us to form what we call, if you look on the left side of the slide, an internal representation. This internal representation are basically the pictures in our mind, which then create a state of emotion for us. If I were to say, you know, don't you just love the beach? The word beach is going to put a different picture in your head. For me, I see the Gulf of Mexico. That's the beach. But for some of you who are like maybe raised on the West Coast or the East Coast, you have a very different picture of the beach. Same to say with, you know, people who've had really bad experiences at a beach party. Maybe things didn't go the way that they planned. Maybe they actually didn't have fun. Maybe something negative really happened to them. And when you say the word beach, they get a negative picture from that experience because it's tagged. So I'm not going to go any further there, but we call the internal representation a picture in our mind. The picture in our mind, which then creates an emotion for us. So if you look down from internal representation to state, that state is the emotion that we have received from that picture. So that internal picture could create feelings of negative emotions, you know, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame, or it could create positive emotions like happiness, joy, love, and excitement, which then, guys, it gives us a physiological behavior, whether good or bad, right? So if you look at the arrows, internal representation gives us an emotional state, which creates a behavior within us that gets us a result. So in the case of winning the lottery, to take it full circle, we are, the behavior is either that we're going to invest our money or that we're going to spend our money. You know, it depends on our internal representation. In the case of COVID-19 right now, are we taking action as business owners, or are we sitting around waiting for it to pass? It depends on our internal representation. Our behavior is either going to get us the results that we desire in life, or it's not. And we really need to think about what are the pictures that we're seeing that are creating the emotion that's creating the behavior that is getting us the result. So how do we change our behavior, right? I think it's interesting because whenever we look up articles or we're Googling like how to not feel sadness in this experience, they're just telling us what's happening, but they're not really telling us how to shift it, which is so frustrating because I'm like, there's so much help that we could be doing in the world. And this is why we're here, right? How do we stop procrastinating? How do we stop biting our nails? How do we stop that internal conflict that we might have inside of ourselves that is sabotaging our happiness and our calmness, you know? It's sabotaging our ability to move forward in a strong and assertive manner. You know, how do we change that behavior? And I think partly is we need to identify the triggers, you know. There's a lot of information here, guys, but I'm going to go ahead and skip to how we shift our internal representation. Because by shifting our internal representation, we get the long-term change. When you change the pictures in your mind, it has this trickle down effect for the state, for the physiology, and it reprograms your unconscious mind. And that's what it's all about here. So to give you a quick example, the person who always loses their keys, right? Let's take it back. Why are they doing that? It's likely coming from one of their filters. And if you look in the slide, in the middle of the slide, there's 9 filters. It starts with time, location, mood, metaprograms, language, memories, decisions, beliefs, values, and identity. So basically, why are they doing that? It's likely coming from one of these 9 filters, right? They have a limiting belief that they are always late. Let's just say that, right? You've heard them too, like you're sitting there and someone's late and you're like, I'm so sorry, I'm always late. They say that. If you believe you're one of those people who is never on time, you're likely taking either way too long getting ready, or you hit the snooze buttons on your alarm clock like all the time. And you may always delete the keys out of your awareness so that you can please the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind, again, is 90% of who we are. So if they are in control of all of the programming and habits, it is going to do whatever it needs to do to prove to your unconscious mind that you are always late. So it might delete the keys from your awareness. It might make you hit the snooze button a million times. It might, make you take way too long to get ready. So right now I'm working with a client who we just discovered the real reason why she cannot have fulfilling intimate relationships. And it's not even due to lack of self-worth like she initially suspected it to be. And granted, there is a lot of lack of self-worth, but the root cause was actually different from the overall broad idea of having lack of self-worth. After we got to the root of it, we learned that as a military family, she learned never to get close to anyone because she would eventually move away and have to start over, right? She developed this belief that no one would ever want to get close to her and keep in touch because she would eventually move away. The unconscious mind will sabotage what you consciously desire because it will play out all of your limiting beliefs, your negative emotions, and your limiting decisions that basically have become patterns and have been embedded deep within your neurology. In an Ask Me Anything, a well-known business owner here in Austin asked me this question: how do I stop working hard for money? To which my response was, get rid of the limiting belief that making money is hard, right? I was quite surprised actually that this person was dealing with this issue, but it just goes to show that despite where all of us are in life, we can all benefit from exploring what's holding us back and getting to the next level. And values, guys, it's one of the lowest right before identity. Don't even get me started. It is like the most favorite part of what I do here in NLP and my coaching. If you're having challenges that are ongoing, it's likely because there's a values misalignment. And this is in any context of your life. It could be business or work, relationships, or whatever is happening. This happens often with new business owners, for example, that I mentor. They have started a new business and they can't figure out how to make money. And when I elicit their values for their business or entrepreneurship, depending on how they think about it, because again, it's their language, rarely does money make that list of values. And when I ask them, why is money not important to you? They say it's because they are not doing it for the money. They're doing it to help others. To which my response is, well, if money is not important to you, then you don't have a business. You basically have a hobby, right? So when you change the pictures, you change everything. And I'll give you one more quick example before we open it up to questions. But basically, I was telling a friend this. I was stuck in have this relationship that I got out of when I was 24 years old. And for a lot of years, I could not get past this person. And when my coach asked me, when you think of this person, what picture do you get? I realized that I saw him like right here in my face. He was this close to me. And that was part of the problem, is that I just kept seeing him this close. And so I had to change the pictures. I had to use my primary representational system to change the submodalities and distort the picture. And now now, like a few years ago, I feel so much better. I don't see him this close anymore. He's way back over there. And like things have definitely changed and opened up for me. So change the pictures, you change everything. Big picture here, guys. Perception is projection. Is this helping in understanding how all this works right now? If any of you are interested in going a little deeper in like an intro to NLP, what Sarah was telling you she took just before this, basically, guys, this just boils down to needing more skills and having more awareness so that we as leaders, can help others find a more empowering reality for ourselves and for others, really. Perception is reality. Some people like to say, I aspire to get from 126 bits to 2 million bits, right? They think like, why is that not a thing? But like, you really don't, I say, no, you don't, because you don't want 2 million bits of information. It's just way too much information. If you're having to think and sift through 2 million bits of information, it's going to be very overwhelming. Have you guys ever seen someone get overwhelmed at a Baskin and Robbins? I remember standing in line once thinking, I'm never coming here again. You ask my kid, what do you want? It's either chocolate or vanilla. He doesn't have any other information. There's no other neurology for the 101 flavors that Baskin and Robbins has. So, if you have to filter down to an appropriate level, which is why when we get overwhelmed, we want to make a list and prioritize that list to find a limited focus. When we find a limited focus, we're less overwhelmed and we have more laser focus to do the things that we need to do for us. For me, guys, during this time of COVID-19 and shelter in place, I have two choices. I've chosen to have two choices. I either win or I lose, but I don't get stuck. I don't get paralyzed. I don't focus on the other 130 possibilities that could come from what is happening all around me right now. I'm choosing a more empowering reality for myself because I can bite-size down on winning or losing, right? I can't figure out how to beat the idea that the world is coming to an end and all of my money is going to be worth nothing, or that my kid is going to grow up in a society where he's not going to have access to clean organic food. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's all this stuff is just, it doesn't feel good. And if I keep focusing on that, it's not going to continue to feel good. What good is that anyways? Instead, I can choose that we will get through this, that I'm going to be a smarter, stronger, well-positioned entrepreneur because of it, that money will evolve in our system, and that whatever the next system is, I will be ahead of the game, and that my son will grow up more aware, more attuned, and adjust to the circumstances. Do you see where this is going? So this concept of perception is everywhere, and just really recognize that there is no objective reality, that we are all projecting our own inner stuff onto the world. And, sure, up is up and down is down, and there are things that are physical and tangible. However, we're talking about our subjective experiences, how we feel about things. When you change your worldview, the world around you also begins to shift. So be thinking about questions about the communication model, because I'm going to open it up for questions soon. But let me go back to the poker thing. So y'all, just like the game of poker, if you want to win, you have to play, right? You see, with every decision that we make, there's going to be some level of risk involved. And depending on our mindset, we can either win or lose in any situation. And in poker, those that play it safe, it's safe means that you play a hand only when having the best hand is in your favor. This style of play, I've just learned over the years, in poker and in life, really, guys, is not only boring, but it cuts you off from creating any real opportunity for yourself that could yield in a massive payout or reward. And that calling for me that I mentioned to you earlier, it wasn't just about being a poker dealer. It was starting my entrepreneurial journey as the owner of an underground Texas Hold'em cash game. And underground, my friends, is not having the best cards in my favor because it was illegal. it was risky, and sometimes it was really dangerous. And just like the game of poker, playing the hand that you're dealt, guys, is the only option that you have. You don't just throw away your hand and start over in the same hand. You can't. You use the tools and the skills that you have in that moment to guide your decisions on how you're going to play. So simply wishing for a better hand or for better luck will never get you closer to winning. With that said, I'm grateful for all of you for sticking around and hearing me out. I'm ready for some questions if you have them. And also I'm excited to share that if you want more skills and learning of this kind, I have a 2-day virtual training coming up designed to shift your mindset to achieve a more empowering reality. You can apply these learnings to business and life. The training is Friday, May 15th and the 16th. It also serves as a strong introduction to NLP. And if you are totally in love with the value that you will receive during this 2-day training, you can continue your learning through a 7-day, 14-day, or 28-day NLP fast track experience. So yeah, Sarah attended my event. She told you a little bit about it. I'm going to turn it back to you, Sarah.
I actually have some notes that I took from my training, and some of the stuff I'd like to bring up. Do you mind?
Yeah, please.
See if you can maybe elaborate on it a little bit more. I also take notes in the way that my brain works, so some of it doesn't make sense. One of the things that I wrote down, I think, you know, all of us in the industry right now are probably dealing with some repressed, unresolved negative emotions. And one of the things that I wrote down was negative emotion drains so much energy that it takes away from everything else in life. What advice or NLP suggestion do you have for moving through negative emotion and not holding on to it so that it doesn't take up space for other things that you need to focus on?
So there's a lot. I think where you're going here, there's a lot of reasons why we have negative emotions. And when you think of, a lot of it, guys, is learned experiences, because we go over this in our NLP Master Practitioner course, we go over values, which when we're 0 to 8 years old, a lot of people think because we can't talk that somehow we're not learning anything. But the point is that because we can't use we can't use language to communicate, we're literally taking in everything. Like when my son is doing this, I know that he's like recording something that I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my God, what did he just like embed in his mind right now? I have to think about that. And a lot of times, if you from a long time ago have embedded a situation that had caused anger, you start to generalize other situations that start packing on and building within that same context. So, you know, if a lot of times those emotions will come up because of our old programming. So if you go back to the communication model and you look at those 9 filters, some of those filters are decisions, beliefs, values, and identity. And the thing is the lower those filters go in the totem pole, the harder they are to change. What I want to say is there's no quick fix, because you really have to go in and do the deep work. You have to understand where that root cause is, and you have to get the learnings. So if I were to try to give you a quick fix that you can think about, my thought is, you know, last night I did this, and this was quick because normally I would have my coach do work on me for this negative emotion, but I had this negative emotion of maybe it was something to do with self-worth in a relationship. And I tried to go back to like the first time that I ever felt like, why don't I have integrity in this situation? Why is this coming up for me now when I'm 33 years old? And it took me back to this experience almost immediately, where I was like, whoa, okay, that was probably the time where I made a decision that I was going to be angry about this particular situation. And I asked myself, like, what did you learn in this situation? Now that I'm not associated in that memory anymore, I'm hovering above it, looking over it, thinking, what do I need to learn to feel better about this situation? And I was able to take some learnings away from that were able to make me just like feel better. It almost felt like I had all this baggage in a backpack that I was holding on. And as soon as I learned the learning, I just felt immediately better. I didn't feel the stress or the anger that I had surrounding that experience. So I would just try to think about like what memories do I have of my past that could get me there. Initially, when I let go of my anger, I had this memory that I was massaging my dad's foot at the foot of the bed, and I was pissed off that I'm massaging my dad's feet. And you know what it was? I felt like I had to do something to get love from someone. That has nothing to do with my dad. That was what I interpreted from massaging my dad's foot. But that told me at a young age, when I was 7 years old, that the way to get love was to give something first. That is not a belief that I need to take with me to have an empowering relationship. I need to get rid of that belief and know that I am worthy of love because I am me and I am awesome, and I don't need to be anyone else to receive love. So, sorry, that's a lot of examples. What I've learned going through NLP is that it really takes, I appreciate one-on-one coaching now because you get the time, you get the 10, 15 hours to go through these things and really understand and help someone through them. The beautiful part too is we don't have to know content. I have a client right now who's had so much trauma that she cannot tell me the actual situations because it might be like hard or shame. So she might be carrying a lot of shame from it. And it's okay, I don't need to know the content. I just need to know how you feel about it. If you feel shame, then we can start there. So it's what I love about this is that you don't have to know the content. But yeah, to answer your question, I would just go back to where you thought it could begin and trust your unconscious mind, because I didn't think my unconscious mind was going to take me where I went yesterday, but it did. And that's because it was ready to be resolved. It came up, it bubbled up because it was ready for me to address it.
Awesome. I have one more because I don't want to give away all the secret sauce. So what I wrote down in these notes, and this is something that I think is super relevant. I think a lot of people are probably struggling with bouts of depression right now. So what I wrote down was the fastest way out of depression is to change your physiology. If you don't like your state, go back inside and change it. The moment you feel a negative emotion, change your focus. The goal is to not be in a negative state for more than 3 or 4 minutes in a day. Any tips for switching your mindset out of a negative state related to feeling depression?
Yes. So the communication model, I didn't really get into physiology too much because it all works together, but physiology is kind of like a secret back door. Tony Robbins is notorious for using physiology in everything that he does. That's why when you go to a Tony Robbins event, he has you dancing the majority of the time. And honestly, it's something that I've used in my life. Even before this call, I put on my favorite song and I dance and I just feel freaking good, and it like wires me and starts firing. It just feels really good to like get out of your body. There have also been times, and this also happened when COVID-19 happened. I lost 100% of my customers. I let myself be sad for 2 days because it's okay to be sad and to feel the feelings. It's just not okay to stay there. But when I was ready to get out of it, I put on a song and I danced, and I could feel it just coming out of me. I was crying at the same time. And really, guys, physiology just allows you to get all of that stuck sadness and pent up aggression and emotion out of your body. It breaks it up, just like when we go, us ladies, when we go and we do the microdermabrasion to get the plumping of the what is it? Yeah, you know,
the wrinkles.
yeah, the what is it called? Lauren, help me out.
Collagen or something?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You know, it's the same thing. You're breaking up the stuckness of it all so that you can pull out other beautiful parts of it. And so honestly, like, even we're inside a lot right now. Just go outside, go to a track, get a quick even if you don't work out, get a stretch in and pick up your hands. You pick up your hands. This right now does so much for me, just picking up the hands, because we normally don't pick up our hands. It's like, put your hands up in the air. I mean, that feels amazing just doing that. So physiology really helps to, if you're in a moment where you just feel like, gosh, why do I feel this way? I don't want to feel this way. Do something different. Say yes, strike a move, do a dance, go take a run, whatever it is to get out of your state that you're in. Yeah, we go over this in rapport during our 2-day training. So yeah, physiology is huge, guys. It's the back door. It's the back door in the case. It's not the way that you change things long term, but it's the way that you get out of the stuck energy, and you take the action. Because if you can take the action, you can start moving towards a more productive situation. But it's when you can't take the action. Physiology, that back door, helps you quickly get out of your body and start taking action, starts getting you to move.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Corina? If so, you can actually unmute your mic and just go ahead and ask, or you can type it into the chat.
I know, I gave you guys a lot of information. I never know what to do in these situations sometimes, because I know there's so much to learn. I've dropped in some links for you, the 2-day virtual training link, and then also there's a video there, how our internal state influences our behaviors. I go through this like very intimate experience of what I did to my boyfriend and how I negatively reacted to him. But a lot of it was because of the COVID-19 and what was happening and how I redirected it. And then also, if you want to email me about any coaching relating programs past this, there's my email there, and also any event related inquiries, my email is also there.
And I'll follow up for everyone who's on here with those links, just in case you don't grab them from the chat. So we're gonna put a call out for questions one more time if no one has questions. Sorry, I'm getting the chat.
Any comments, thoughts, anything that has come up for you? Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, processing a lot.
Yeah, I think it is a lot. Like, even being in the 2-day training, it's a lot of information, and this is a lot of high level overview of the information kind of sandwiched into this quick chat. So I would 100% recommend, if anyone has questions or maybe some things that you don't feel comfortable sharing publicly, reach out to Corina. She's always willing to help and provide her perspective. But thank you, Corina, for doing this.
For sure. Absolutely.